Evening all. It looks like it's working this time. I've been pushing the button relentlessly, so we're not late. It was just the buttons; they weren't letting me in. How are we this evening, Danny? I can see you in sort of HD 4K mode this evening. I've never realised quite how handsome and becoming you are.
Oh God, don't I look awful right now? But no, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, it's a bit weird. I've put the camera on the big screen, so I'm actually facing the camera kind of. But this is literally the first time I've plugged it in, so there's work to do. But it's something. It's a bit of an upgrade. But yeah, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Well, actually, I kind of intimated it before we came on, but probably like a lot of people at the moment, I've got a kind of throaty, chesty situation on here. And in a way, my FPL season is turning to something similar to the mucal buildup that I've got in my throat and lung area at the moment, sort of dragging me down. It's remaining there. I won't carry on with that analogy, but everyone probably knows how that feels. I've had a bit of a pounding in the last couple of weeks, actually, to tell you the truth. So not season ending. No, nothing like that. Not that kind of pounding, if only. But yeah, it's been a tricky few weeks for us, kind of non-Thiago owners. You can hide that smug face behind the glass there. But yeah, a few things like that. Michael Keane red card. It's been a tough few weeks for me, so I'm looking forward. I always seem to do worse when we don't pod, whereas I suspect you do the opposite.
I don't know about that. No, I've been surviving the last few weeks. Yeah. I've been surviving. It's been a bit of a frustrating time, isn't it? Which is kind of what tonight. Go on.
You've got your own nemesis, haven't you? I was going to say, if Anthony Gordon gets lost in a storm and ends up at your door on a wet sort of Tuesday night, you won't be letting him in and giving him a hot drink. You'll be telling him to move on. Sling your hook.
I will. I don't know if he's the only one at the moment as well. There's a few, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they've got time to make it up for me and my team. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, anyway. Chat, do let us know, by the way, if these kind of little upgrades that we're making to become slightly more professional actually work. So Danny and I have got, I don't know whether, if I mention the name of the camera, will they send us free stuff? I don't know. Is it a good idea? I'm not sure. But yeah, we've got these little cool 4K cameras, and the software doesn't kind of allow it to go at the highest level. We'll eventually invest in some proper stuff, but we're gradually getting there and becoming slightly more professional. So let us know if it makes any difference, or if you'd rather not really see our faces, in which case go for the Spotify link instead, and then you won't need to see either of us. Just listen to our dulcet Terry Wogan-like tones as well instead. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Nice. I'll say hello to the chat now. Actually, lots of regulars and a few newbies. I am 1974. Liked the mucal notice that I made about that and the recent things. Heather, always a trooper. The Goonster. There we go. Evening, everyone, as well, and plenty of people who were waiting around earlier for us. BB Defender. And other people as well. Thank you very much for joining. And we should be pretty close to a new sub target, I think, by the way, Danny. I'm pretty sure we were knocking on the door of 800, I think, which, by the way, if you're a proper person with one of your fancy pods, because we get a lot of other podcasters listening to us, I have no idea why, who've got insane numbers in comparison. Probably doesn't mean, but we take it as a huge compliment that you would bother to spend any time with us. So thank you very much if you are subscribing and liking, and please do continue doing so. It makes us feel very good about ourselves. Good. Let me crack on then, and lots to talk about this week, because actually I agree with your title. Danny makes the decisions on titles and that sort of thing, and the title today is Decision Point: Act Now or Wait, and I'm definitely in the thick of that. Actually, our teams probably both have a similar kind of, you could do something but then that happens, or you could not do something and then that might happen, which is normal in FPL, of course, but it does feel a little bit. I mean, you mentioned actually in our last pod, Danny, that the team was starting to feel a bit fragile, and I'm totally with you at that point now. The team is definitely feeling, I don't know, yeah, it's feeling like it's sort of limping along on a Zimmer frame at this point. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, It's just a slow time. It's a tough time. I mean, this is going to be the sort of basis of the whole pod. Is like, is there anywhere to go? Is there anyone that can save us? Is there any way to make our team better? And it's a really, really difficult question at the moment. And I don't know. I think I probably put that sort of title together just quickly yesterday or the day before. Maybe thinking I was a bit more set on decisions or broad plans than I was, and now I'm probably less likely to necessarily make a decision. I don't know. So
yeah,
decision
really.
point might actually be a decision to not make any decisions.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Can I just say, by the way, our chat are not like us. If you imagine that you and I are sort of cowering in the corner, trying to dodge any actual decisions, FPL FOMO in the chat here is a sort of 6'5", broad-shouldered cowboy boots type, acting now on wildcard, no messing about here. So he's a real man. You and I are just pretending, but hopefully he can give us some advice throughout the pod. Let's talk a little bit about. It's been a couple of weeks as usual. We're not very good with the tight turnarounds. I'm sure we'll eventually get better at it, but it's quite tricky for various reasons. Lots of oh god, someone in the chat's just reminded me of a West Ham reference. I've been trying to avoid talking about West Ham as much as I can. Maybe that'll come along later on. That's another reason to feel bad and mucal about the last few weeks. Anyway, mini league. Obviously it's closed now, but congratulations to Nick S, who's top with Nicky Naka. Matthew Nuttall second with Defcon Dynamos. Benji Yag in third, and you'll see the rest of the top six on the screen. Michael Berry, manager of the week. I can't actually remember what he scored, but it's sort of high 70s with Cunha. Believe it, Cunha will feature in this pod, I suspect, as well. So yeah, well done. And also a note at the bottom there on that screen. Where the hell is Zach Farnell? Zach Farnell, I couldn't even find him. I was looking up and down the top 10. I was like, where the bloody hell is Zach Farnell? So Zach, if you're out there, just send us a message to let us know that you're alive and well, that you're not sort of tied up in some kind of FPL basement somewhere, and that you still have a chance of winning. So there we go. But that would be good. So yeah, keep an eye on that. I think there's probably a cup that starts at some point or another. I'm not going to pretend that I care that much about that sort of thing unless I win. But you never know. Oh, Heather's given you a comment here. You look nearly as tall as her. So
I know everyone's saying in the chat, apparently this makes me look really small, and I'm like, what? I've got this massive screen and the camera's all the way up there, and it is actually, I mean, look, my arms don't make me look small, do they? There we go.
I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, Danny is massive, and I'm not just talking about height. By the way, I have got to open the door for my wife in a minute, Danny, so I'm just going to warn you about that in just a moment. But yes, but yeah, no, Danny is a very tall man, so we're
both deceptively tall, aren't we? I think.
Yeah. I'm kind of leaning. That's my problem here. But there we go. What I'm going to do, Danny, this is going to upset you tremendously, but I'm just going to very quickly open the door. I'll be back.
You better hurry. You're going to leave me with. Okay.
I'll be back. You can talk about anything you like. The chat can keep you company.
No, that's absolutely fine. What I will do is I will read out the first question and I'll open the chat in case there's anything there. Oh, there's loads of questions there. So yeah, first question: first dilemma, should I say? How do we make the decision between picking Palmer and Saka, historic quality, against Enzo and Rice? Can we still believe in the big boys? I was gonna ask Rich to sort of come to this first, to be honest, and I may still do that. Oh, there we go, just in time. Sorry, I was just reading out the first dilemma about Saka and Palmer. So, and I was saying that I was actually going to come to you first, if you had any thoughts on this.
No, that's fine. So once again, by the way, just thank you for all the great questions that come in. I've kind of grouped them together in sort of 2 or 3 batches there. But I think the top one there, which Danny's already read out, it is a really interesting time, isn't it? Because I remember I saw a message from Prass, who has done a really good pod on chips and that sort of thing in the last couple of days, and he is good evidence that really anyone can have good and bad seasons to at least an extent within our kind of coterie, because I know he's not having his best time of it, and Actually, another friend of ours who watches most weeks, FPL Mike, he's another one. He's one of the only managers I know who actually has won money in the game and that sort of thing. A really good manager, and he again is being absolutely bashed by this season. But yeah, but anyway, they both certainly Prass is someone who is still leaning towards, at least until recent news, trying to work with both of the big name picks here, Palmer and Saka, and really using that opportunity for people's doubt against Enzo and Rice. But it is one of the big decisions, and actually one of the reasons why wildcarding now is quite a challenge, as opposed to in a couple of weeks' time when you might have a bit more information. I remember seeing, we'll bring it up in a minute, but Lego Mane's graphic, which is excellent this week, just reminds you that if you do hang on until about game week 24, then you probably see about 4 or 5 Chelsea fixtures even before then, which will help you make your mind up. I mean, my own team, for example, for Chelsea, I've got Sanchez and Gui. We haven't decided on that one. I'm sure we did a long time ago. But it makes decisions really, really hard because you have to get the right one. But yeah, on this, I have to be honest with you, all of the news that comes out in recent days, if you have just tuned into this with Palmer and his injury status and fears that he's even going to be potentially rested for the game, is it tonight or tomorrow against Arsenal? It is worrying, isn't it? Because you can't plan, and he's such a good player, but the evidence this season isn't really in our favour. So Pieter in the chat there just confirming that, well, not confirming, but reminding us that that Palmer isn't necessarily playing tomorrow because of a niggling injury. And add to that the point there about Saka. He's been another one that's been frustrating you in your own team, isn't it? By not really getting to 90 minutes. I think the last game that we saw him in, again, sort of hitting those kind of late 70s, still needing to win the game and still being bought off. So my own view is that most people will have Saka, and there really isn't enough evidence or any good evidence to move him on. But at the same time, I think it's very, very difficult to bring in Palmer at this point in time. But where do you stand on it with your own thoughts at the moment?
Oh, I'm just going off in my head now, thinking about the first thing you said there about people struggling, and I don't know whether there's a conversation there or not, to be honest. Maybe for another time, but like, I've been thinking recently that, I don't know, I kind of said this as well a lot pre-season and last season about like people maybe not realizing like how many more and more engaged managers are. Like, it's almost exponential how much harder the game is getting, and how many people are tuned in regularly to content. Even when it multiplied so much last season, that then means you start the new season with an awful lot more people consuming content and playing very seriously from the start of the season. Do you know what I mean? Like, so even if we had 200,000-300,000 people starting to take the game more seriously last season, it changes quite significantly at the start of every season in terms of the implications of that. And there are just so many engaged managers now. So it's funny. When lots of people, for example, content creators are struggling so much, and it's because more people are consuming content from the content creators. I mean, the number of people who must own someone like Rice, for example, and that has been a bit of a, not coin flip, but most people haven't owned Saka and Rice, for example. But the implications of being able to own Rice and getting so many points and being able to have so much more money, and it's just so difficult at the moment. It's so difficult to kind of catch up and move. And I don't know, it's just something worth saying at some point that do you know what I mean? It is insane how many people are so engaged now. And also, on top of just the engagement, is low-key so many more people and content creators and people you see on Twitter use models more and more. And that lifts the floor a lot in terms of how difficult it is to beat certain players. Doesn't mean that models are the answer. It doesn't mean that using a model is going to get you a good rank, but you know what I mean? So it's there's so many more people engaged and so many more content creators that are kind of got models as a bit of a framework to go from. Anyway, maybe that's a discussion for another time when we've got more. There's too much to discuss tonight, but I don't know. Did you want to say anything on that quickly, or you were just unmuted yourself?
No, I did. I think I'm hearing it more and more, as you say, and it's something that we need to I don't think we're in a position here where either you and I are going to go off on some kind of mental health style explanation that someone probably more sensitive or younger than I or better will explain it better. But it is true to say that the greater number of competition out there, the greater the amount of uptake on models, etc., is just a reality of how we do things here. So yeah, it's hard to argue with any of what you said there.
It's just this is why it can get so frustrating as well. Sorry, did we about to say something then?
No, fine, yeah.
Sorry. In terms of frustrating, in terms of like, I mean, you think how difficult it is to move and get any sort of meaningful jumps. I mean,
yeah,
I've managed to get a few meaningful jumps, which is why I've got an all right rank. I mean, we're both doing all right. I've had some meaningful jumps. They've been quite sort of singular. I mean, I had like a good bench boost. I mean, my triple captain, most people ended up with a pretty good triple captain, apart from those who went Sunderland or whatever it was. Most people got that sort of 17 pointer. I got a big bench boost. I mean, the thing that stands out, because there's so few, it's so difficult to make a sort of significant jump. I mean, getting Foden in, for example. So that I keep looking back at that. I don't want to spend the whole season going, oh, that was the one moment where you had something, getting Foden in early and then having a few weeks of points. Because outside that, obviously, it's not as simple as that, and it's accumulation of points and it's an accumulation of play and so on and so on. But it's very, very difficult, and people get more and more desperate for that reason to sort of find someone different. And this is one of these things this week is we're going to discuss is how logical is it to move? How much of a risk is it to pick certain players? How much value is there in holding a transfer when people really want to make moves, understandably? And there are lots of players, and it's relevant to the wild card as well in terms of the opportunity there. And I feel like some of that's been sort of taken away from us, which is what we'll discuss in terms of those players. So, yeah, I mean, back to the sort of original point, Saka and Palmer. Saka and Palmer. Look, I mean, Saka, there are some caveats with Saka. So, I mean, I guess a lot of it's pretty obvious. Saka is still a great pick. I don't think he's as good as a pick as he was. I think he's a great pick. I think he's underperformed. I think at any moment he could still get a pretty big haul. So it's never really a problem. I think Rice has been better value and potentially will be better value for the rest of the season. Potentially. I mean, there are some things with Saka. So first of all, there is this shift in football this season. This has affected Saka. I think, there's less football being played this season. It's less about open play football and tactics and more about set pieces and kind of rigidity and robustness and all the other stuff. That means footballers like Saka aren't quite doing it the same compared to someone like Rice, who just takes more set pieces, gets DEFCON more often, and is on the pitch more now. I mean, that's the thing with Saka in terms of how good is he, is that we're seeing for the first time ever him rotate Saka more. So that's a problem. It's more of a problem, I think, when the games are tightly packed. And I guess we'll look at Arsenal in a minute in terms of what that looks like, because I'm not sure. We've just been through a very tightly packed season and period, and we saw Saka get rotated a little bit, and certainly minutes managed a little bit, because obviously we've got Madueke there on the right. Now that's a problem for Saka. So it's a problem, but we need to look at the fixtures. So, for example, if there's this Arsenal double game week, I don't know if is it in 26 or something that Arsenal might have a double game week, for example.
Yeah, 25, 26, yeah.
So that's where, if I was wildcarding before that right now, if that looks really tight to me, and I've not actually inspected that yet, but I think it's a pretty close turnaround, and there's potentially a game there that Arsenal maybe could rest Saka, or we could see reduced minutes. That's really quite significant, because whereas in the past Saka would have been probably the nailed-on captain for that week and the absolute must-have, is now I'm not even sure you'd want him, for example. So that's a really big shift, isn't it? Because you definitely want Gabriel. You ideally, you'll definitely want Rice, because Rice will play both games. You don't have to mute the sirens. That's part of our pod, isn't it? The regular sirens.
Honestly, it's ridiculous, isn't it? People round here probably think I'm some kind of dangerous down type. It's just not the case.
You see what I mean? So that's really obvious, isn't it? I suppose if there's a double and it's tight, there's already 2 players from Arsenal gone that you do really want, and and I'm now not really sure with Saka what that looks like over double game week. I wouldn't captain him, for example. Having said all that, Saka's underlyings are much better than Rice's. He's still a better pick. I still believe he's a better pick than Rice. I hope that to be the case. I do think that's the case. I mean, he'd be way ahead on models. He is way ahead on models. So he is, and his ownership's pretty low, isn't it? I mean, every time I've been looking recently, it's like 40%. This is the other thing that's made it so frustrating. It's like it just feels like such an opportunity. There's an opportunity to gain some rank, and it's just never. It's just. I'm just looking now, and it's like 3, 4, 6, 7, 3, 11, 4, 6, 5, 4. Yeah, so nothing major. I mean, the other, the one thing about Saka and about Palmer and about that whole discussion that I do really like is the price point. And I would want that price point myself in my team.
Yeah. I was going to say, and I don't want to cut you off here, but like,
no, it's fine.
I'm old-fashioned in this regard, I think, possibly. But even if I wildcarded right now, I would still want at least one of those players in there to restrain me, to provide some sort of fiscal discipline, so to speak, as much as anything else in the squad. And spreading it, I've seen a lot of wildcards this week, and I'm pretty sure all of the midfielders have been about the same sort of price, around about this sort of 7.5 type area. I know it's not exactly that, but those kind of mid to high price midfielders, and that would worry me. Immediately you're locking yourself into a potential problem. And it's the same issue that I have with the 2 cheap strikers, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Personally, I'm not entirely sure I'm au fait with that either. But I don't know whether you're like this, Danny, but I quite like a little bit of operating with constraint, and I see having that slot there as a good way of keeping me fresh and available and flexible personally. But I know other people don't see it necessarily that way.
Yeah, for sure. That's it. It's all about, that's a big part of my game, and my approach is flexibility and structure. It's a tough one because I guess we have to talk about Palmer in the same conversation, and that links to obviously wildcard and transfers and everything else. All being well, everyone being fully fit, everyone being fully sharp, everyone looking like we expect them to look. Palmer would probably be instead of Saka for me there. If I was wildcarding fresh, I would probably have Rice and I would probably have Palmer, because you could have both. I could have both now, for example, quite relatively easily. But that's stretching it a bit, given what we're seeing and given what we're getting. So, but it isn't all being well. It's not all well.
Mm-hmm.
We've basically they're saying at the moment that Palmer is struggling with an ongoing. Well, we're hearing from some accounts that it's struggling with an ongoing injury. We're certainly hearing from Chelsea that he's having his minutes managed. And the manager's even said he's still having his minutes managed. So that's disappointing for him, for football, for Chelsea, for FPL, because he was obviously given that rest and time to recover and was off for he missed a good a couple of months. And you were really hoping that he was just going to come back 100%. And he's been back a while now, and he clearly isn't 100%. And as I say, there are some accounts saying there's just an ongoing groin issue. I hope it isn't something that's going to be really long term. I'd be devastated again from a footballing perspective. Cole Palmer. Simple fact is they're talking about managing minutes, and so that's just throws up way too many spanners to want to get on Palmer now, and to even necessarily, this is the conversation about wildcard 24. We might as well. We kind of, it's all part of the same conversation. But a lot of us have been thinking about wildcard 24 for a while, because it's pretty obvious in terms of fixture swings and so on, fairly significant ones. And the obvious one is Chelsea, and then another one amongst others is Man United and Bruno being back and all the rest. It's pretty obvious, and I love that. I love that a real clear opportunity, a clear fixture swing, and I'm all for an early wildcard. And I don't want to say stuff that's been said too much on other pods, so forgive me if I do, but it's important about Palmer. So if we just quickly flick to Lego Mane's.
Oh yeah.
He's updated his thing, hasn't he?
This one.
Really good. yeah, these are excellent, and obviously we love Lego, and he's part of our team as well. But
yeah, Dan's a great guy.
So if you look at Chelsea here, I mean, I can't see the actual teams very well, but they play tomorrow night. So they play tomorrow night against Arsenal. That's right, isn't it?
Yep.
Then we got no rest against Brentford, so that could be all over the place in terms of rotation. Brentford. Then they've got a midweek Champions League game. Is it Champions League? I can't remember. There's a midweek game there. I can't really see it. And then they've got Palace away, but then they've got another midweek. Who's that? Is that one?
It's away in Napoli. Yes, it's a big
away
game.
at Napoli. Yeah. So again, big game, and then hardly any rest for West Ham. So that's just like massive red flag to me in terms of Palmer. In terms of, I mean, he could easily not play either of those games. When you think about minutes managed, I mean, Maresca was essentially fired because he wasn't doing what the physios said, which is outrageous anyway. But he wasn't resting. Supposedly, wasn't resting James or Palmer enough, and wasn't taking them off enough. So these are the facts. So at the moment, do I want to just change my whole team around and get Palmer in, who it just doesn't, that opportunity isn't the same anymore in terms of wildcard 24, in terms of your transfers in general. That opportunity just isn't the same anymore as it was, because Palmer was a big thing about switching everything around, wasn't it? Palmer was a huge opportunity that was.
Yeah. And actually, I think arguably the key reason to consider a wildcard 24 was Palmer, but also just a note on your point about the fixtures, right? So, okay, what have we got? In the next 18 days, they've got 6 fixtures. And you'd have to say that a number of them, they're hard games, actually, despite what people think, right? I know that the league fixtures on paper, they all look lovely and green, but Arsenal in the Cup is obviously going to be a challenging game. They're going to want good players in that game. Brentford at home, it's a relative. I can tell you because I live near Brentford. It's a local derby. They contest it very well, and they always give Chelsea a really good game. No one would be surprised if they win that game or get a point. So that's one thing that puts me off of going in at this point. And then Crystal Palace away after that European away, we know that that's likely to be relatively low scoring. So again, from an attacking point of view, there's no rush there. And then Napoli away is incredibly hard. And then, of course, we don't need to talk about West Ham at the end of the month. But I really don't see the rush, actually. The longer the week has gone on, and it's really nice that we've had 3 or 4 days of sort of clear headspace a little bit, even if we haven't been thinking about FPL. But I look at this and I'm like, I'm all right, actually. To be honest, It doesn't really do anything for me now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking the same thing, and I completely agree. Like I think the Brentford game on the weekend is really tough. I mean, Brentford are really on it. They're just what Brentford were, except maybe even 2.0, maybe even upper level. Who knows? But as you say, that's always a really tough game. But it's 2 days rest after a game where you expect they're going to go full strength in the cup, because why wouldn't you? So a lot of players are going to get rested. It's 2 days is really difficult, whereas fully rested Brentford, and as you say, the one there is West Ham, but that's another 2 days rest. So Palmer might not play. It would almost be surprising if he did. It would almost be surprising. You don't want to be going in. You don't want to be. That changes everything. Whereas Arsenal, I can't see the individual fixtures there, but Arsenal are obviously top of their Champions League group. They, the priority for them is more so the league now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in terms of this is why at the moment, like, I would rather have Saka right now. It's just as simple as that. It's just a minutes thing.
Yeah.
As frustrating as it's been, like, he's still. I mean, the other thing with Saka is, again, this is kind of speculative, but I'm not. Some saying that maybe Gyökeres hasn't been very good for him, and maybe that's part of it as well, and just in terms of how the team's worked. And Havertz is back now, isn't he? I mean, he played. I didn't see their cup game, actually, I don't think, but I believe he did come on, because the quotes I read from Arteta were pretty significant, actually, where he sort of said, I was reminded about how this guy moves and the spaces he gets into and what happens to the team and all this sort of stuff. About Havertz. That's pretty significant. You just don't know what sort of effect that sort of thing could have as well, in terms of on Saka. Another little note, I mean, it's probably nothing, but Saliba's a doubt for tomorrow, which is out of nowhere, apparently. But maybe that's nothing. But, if we see Timber going centre-back and then White does play right back, Saka's always looked better with White there as well. So things can change fairly quickly in terms of what that looks like. But basically, long story short is, yes, I would have loved to be able to move on to Parma at the start of those fixtures. Although the funny thing is like, again, this relates back to that point at the start about how many people are engaged now and the content and so on. I knew weeks ago this wildcard 24th snowball was going to start snowballing and it was going to become template. So this interestingly prevents that sort of template thing happening. It's funny because somebody was talking about like Ekatike like last week or something, looking back at like what happened and saying, and they said, I can't believe it didn't work out. It was such a good opportunity. And I thought that word was so funny because Ekatike was 90% effective ownership on the first week that everyone brought him in about 4 weeks ago. Everyone had him. I know there's a few who didn't, whatever, but 90% EO the first week. So it wasn't really an opportunity, was it? It was actually just turned into what would have been a very defensive kind of protective move. The opportunity was actually for the people who didn't get him because everyone did it. And I really think that, say, for example, Palmer have been fully fit right now, for example. And what else are we hinging on? Like Bruno probably is, Bruno's another one. So he's going to, let's say we expect him to play these next two games like we do, look good like I do, even though United have got tough fixtures. Let's say Palmer was fully fit. What are the other ones? I don't know, like Krupi kicked in a bit more in the whole Mane thing or whatever. These guys that a lot of people are thinking about moving to. Everyone, loads of people, the majority of people would have gone wildcard 24 because it would have been a really good play. Whereas now I do think it's going to mix it up a bit because it still could be a good play. It's still very logical. A lot of people still want to do it. And obviously these things are team dependent, depends what your team looks like. But now I think it will be more mixed as it stands. And because, and Palmer is the biggest one because Palmer was the pull. And I'm no longer, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to have Palmer back in my team, I'm just no longer convinced that that's the one. So, yeah, how do we make a decision between picking Palmer and Saka? I think the answer really is that we can't at the moment, and that Palmer isn't really an option at the moment right now. Of course, some people are on wildcard now, so that's difficult, isn't it? I guess that's a separate conversation. You probably do have Palmer if you're on wildcard and just go for it anyway and hope that he does get better minutes. But yeah, the answer is you want the price point. I'd like to keep Saka at the moment. I mean, but yeah, in the same conversation is the Rice and Enzo thing. I think Rice is just a really good pick. If he stays fit, I just think he's a really good pick for the rest of the season at the moment. Weirdly enough, that's just the way it's working. The football's working. Enzo is an interesting one. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on Enzo, but the one thing is that I think Caicedo's suspended tomorrow, isn't he? So we don't actually get to see maybe his favoured formation or what he might have been likely to do and whether Enzo would be in the 10. Because that's still a question. That's another big thing is like, where is Palmer going to be? Is he going to be on the right or is he going to be in the 10? He was obviously on the right at the weekend, of the last league game, with Enzo in the 10. Does Rossinha see it like that? Maybe not. I'd like to see Palmer in the 10, to be honest. But I hate this sort of shoehorning stuff that's like, we need to make room for Enzo, so therefore we need to make room for Palmer. But a lot of Chelsea fans think he's better on the right. I'm not convinced really by that, actually. I think he's a natural 10, and if he is better in the 10, I wish he'd just play there because he's the best player. But that is important, is where does Enzo play? Because he's a funny one. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, that, and I won't bring this up. Actually, no, maybe I can. But it's also just worth noting, I mean, okay, we know that they have a fixture crunch, of course, with these 6 games in 18 days or whatever it is that we've just highlighted. And if it's a cursory scroll through the last half a dozen game weeks, Newcastle 36 minutes and Fulham 64 minutes last game week. And yeah, the rest of them are 90s, and the stats are very decent, of course, as well. But again, it's just another. It's enough to make me think anyway, personally, especially as someone who has 2 Chelsea slots already spoken for, I need to get this right. And there are people that can keep pace with him, whether they're in my team at the moment or someone that you'd consider bringing in. I don't think it's worth making that decision now, basically. So it's a boring answer. I think what I will say, if you're on wildcard this week, I think it's perfectly fine to get Enzo now. I don't particularly have an issue with that. It's probably broadly the most safe one, unless you're getting the goalkeeper, which probably.
This is the massive dilemma, though, isn't it? Like you're almost going in circles, and you kind of do land there. But I think the issue for a lot of people is a lot of people own Cunha, and it's very difficult. And it is very difficult to see, for example, Cunha being a very good pick this week and next week, because you look at it this week and you go, well, City at home, they've got the weak in defence, but it is Man City. It's a tough game, but maybe you could do something. Then you go into Arsenal away though, and for a lot of players, people are looking at it going, because for almost no one that you're going to move on to, there's definitely no point doing it next week.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And that's the issue I think people have. So they're looking at it going, well, I can deal with Cunha for 1 week, for example, especially against City. But do I, with how difficult and turgid it is at the moment, do I want to sit here for 2 weeks? Do I want to then take him into Arsenal away?
Well, can we go into Cunha now, actually? Because I think this would be a really good segue. So well done for bringing it up. But a lot of people, to be honest, I caught a bit of the wire earlier, and all of those guys do go back and watch their pod earlier on, and Prass's work on the chips as well. But yeah, that they all have a similar situation with Cunha. We're talking through a few of their potential replacements and what they needed to do there. And it is an interesting conundrum, isn't it? Because if I'm honest, probably, I don't know how many, let's just say 70, 80% of managers that I have anything to do with, which is mainly sort of SKLW stuff, which some of you will have no idea what I'm talking about, are in this kind of corridor of probably got 1 or 2 transfers this week. And they could roll to have 3 or 4 in 24 and then make a big decision then. Or they could do something about it now, and then they're more likely to potentially wildcard, something like that. So it is this corridor of uncertainty this week, which is the kind of theme of our pod, really, whether to act now or whatever. It is a tricky one. So in my situation, if I did nothing, I'd have Cunha 1 week, and I'd have Anderson the following week, because even Anderson's 4 or 5 points is better than Cunha at Arsenal. It's the only fixture I'd say that about. I'd take anything above that. But unfortunately, it is just Arsenal away, and I've got a ton of their defenders, and it makes no sense. So it's, as you say, it's Cunha, Man City, where he's probably not going to get 90 minutes. We'll talk about that later on. But I would assume that there is greater competition in the squad now, and players coming back that are likely to get sort of 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes off the bench. So you can tell us about that in a minute from a Man United perspective. So it's tricky. I've got my eye on a couple of people, and I'll talk to you about who that might be in a bit, because I chalked up some time with some highlights earlier on, and I did let loose a couple of WTFs when I was watching a few highlights earlier. So that's exciting. But yeah, lots of questions on Cunha. So FPL Grimes asked, is the best Cunha replacement Rodgers? His name has come up a lot. Fixtures are really good for quite a long time. Top options to replace Cunha, and Keane is the other player that we'll talk about because people are looking to replace him. So Anish looking to replace Cunha and Keane. FPL Easy, worth holding Keane. We won't come to Keane just yet. But and also what to do with Foden. So Pete, our good friend, is so luxury laden with transfers that he can decide what to do with Foden before Man United away and Wolves at home. So lucky him. Personally, not a priority this week, to be honest. What do you think then? Because actually, I think people want to know about your take on the Manchester United situation as much as they do with Cunha. So, I mean, are you like anyone else who just wants a watching brief to see what is happening at Manchester United for the next couple of games, or do you have a fair idea of what to expect from the lineup and where Cunha fits in? Because there was part of me where I was planning forward, and I genuinely benched Cunha for a couple of weeks and thought I wouldn't mind if he was definitely important. I wouldn't mind him for 24 because the nice fixtures there and thereabouts. But maybe that's too much of a risk. So, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that in my head, I pretty much I feel like I can predict what they're going to be like, Man United. I think it's kind of their fault. So I don't think there'll be a big deviation from what we've already seen under Fletcher, really. That maybe it'll be better than that. I don't think it will be worse than that. Depends what the coaches that come in. I mean, that's a complicated kind of discussion, really, with Carrick. Assuming it's Carrick, I don't know if it's confirmed or not. If he gets the coaches he wants in, we're looking at this sort of, we might be looking at a bit more of a transitional thing, a bit more of a counter-attacking thing, possibly a bit more like Alab sort of McKenna type, thing, and Ipswich. So, but basically we're going to be, what we know some basics. We're going to have 4 at the back. Bruno's going to be in the 10. We've got Cunha, Bumo, and Bruno in the front 3, and then Sesko as well, who's looked very good the last couple of games. I mean, the numbers have been ridiculous. It's been like 17 shots. What is it in the last 2 games or something ridiculous? And I mean, he looks really good. That's definitely one to watch. So, I just think we're going to see probably not. We're going to see us conceding goals, and we're going to see us going for it, and we're going to see us attacking games, and we're going to see us possibly scoring goals. So, within that, Bruno is obviously the one who looks standout, fantastic, because he does, in the 10, he's just a ludicrous, farcical pick, who will still probably do pretty well on DEFCON with recoveries and all that sort of stuff. The trouble is Cunha. He is the unpredictable one. I mean, it's so weird with Cunha. It's so frustrating watching him. It's really frustrating because he just, number of times he seems to make this sort of crazy decision of a pass, or he's kind of accelerating at the wrong time or trying something, and then usually the amazing things he does is when he's like defending for us, and he's his ability to keep the ball on the byline and break, and it's just he's got as I've said many times before, just a phenomenal ability. But it's so frustrating because he always seems to be in the wrong part of the pitch and sort of still trying too hard and just making the wrong decisions. And the big question for Cunha owners is that what does it look like for him? What can Carrick do for Cunha? Can there just be a few words that's just like, I want you there. Can it be a clear message? I want you in this part of the pitch. I want you to do this, calm down, look for this, do that. I don't know. That's what we need, because he still has that incredible, he still has moments of magic. He still has an incredible shot on him. I mean, there was the goal against Leeds away, as well, when he was like, the team was just like battered, and he still manages to come away from a goal there. He manages to get himself in a position to score a goal. Huge. I mean, it kind of amazed me the last couple of days, because it makes you realise what an unbelievable player someone like Bruno Fernandes is. Because when you get someone like Cunha's ability, you think he's like a god of a player, and he's just not doing anything right. And it's all so hard for him. It's all so complicated at the moment. And it just makes you stand there and go, well, just reminded that, like, wow, Bruno Fernandes is like, he does it all in his sleep. Bruno Fernandes at the moment is coaching people while he plays. He's literally telling Sesko where to run whilst he's got the ball. And then Sesko runs out and he passes it and he scores. He's doing the same with Dorgu. I mean, just makes you appreciate, wow, there are levels to this stuff. Like, hopefully Cunha can get there one day, but Bruno is already on this level that's just, it's not even comparable in terms of his understanding of the game. So yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to predict what Cunha's going to do. It's been really frustrating owning him, and it's really difficult to see him doing the right things in the next couple of games. So that is the worry. But I mean, at the same time, did you see that stat about Thiago being the highest scoring Brazilian player ever in the Premier League already?
Wow, really? Yeah.
So he's got 16. Do you know who the second highest ever highest scoring Brazilian is in the Premier League?
As in for goals, or
Yeah.
just probably the central defender?
No, I mean in one season.
Oh, okay.
The second highest scoring. So Thiago is the highest scoring Brazilian in a season in the Premier League ever, which is mad. Do you know who the second highest scoring is?
Well, I guess Cunha is the logic.
I feel I'd given you a bit of a clue there at the start, but
you have, and also I can see the chat in my blind eye here.
Oh, okay. That's pretty crazy, though, isn't it? I didn't actually realise that he scored 15 goals for Wolves. I knew he scored a lot because I had him for most of the season, but 15 goals for Wolves. So then you go, Jesus, like, surely you can do better at United. So anyway, I think I understand it's but then we look at the alternatives. I mean, let's just run through a few quickly and we can talk about more in detail because I'm trying to think of the main ones. But these are all the caveats that come with them. I mean, you've obviously got Rodgers there. We'll talk about all these more. You've got Rodgers there. Looks great, 90-minute man. Really like that. It is, becoming more of he's certainly a talisman in terms of minutes and his importance to the team. But he's still not got that natural sniffers, poachers ability, I don't think. It's difficult to want to make a whole transfer for someone like Rodgers that might just be for 2 weeks for now, before we wildcard or whatever. Everton at home, that's a good fixture. It's a pretty good fixture, although Everton are very unpredictable and they can just randomly clean against anyone. And then Newcastle away, so it's not great. So one good fixture, one bad fixture, but very good minutes. And but we'll need to talk more about him. Enzo is very similar. Really good minutes. They've got Brentford at home, but that's after 2 days rest. Then, as you say, they've got Palace away, which is just not great. Again, short turnarounds. Again, not actually doing much in the way of points, although the underlines are there. Wilson looks like a great pick, and he's got 2 pretty good fixtures. I think Leeds and Brighton or something like that. But it's still Harry Wilson again, who the minutes, like, there are caveats here. So we're thinking about using a whole transfer to get to these guys. His minutes still haven't been great. You flick through, and there are 90s, but then there are lots of 65s and stuff as well in there. And it's like, I don't really know why. Is there? Oh, you see, I can tell by your face that I've almost offended here because you're obviously already planning to get him in.
I've been doing my due diligence today.
So you can correct me there.
I'll work backwards through Christmas, right? So Chelsea 90 minutes, Liverpool 84, Crystal Palace 84, West Ham 90, Nottingham Forest 83, Burnley 88, Crystal Palace 88. So
I thought there was a 60 in there. I must have missed that.
Okay, so yeah, you have to go back multiple months to get something below 70s. Now, the thing is, right, I have to say, so when I mentioned earlier about I've been spending a fair bit of time watching the highlights of the common people, and like you say, the common replacements rather, and
the common
people, yeah, I know. So giving off vibes there. And to tell you the truth, I went in pretty skeptical, really, that it was at all worthwhile. For reasons that you've sort of hinted at already. With Enzo, there's the caveat of someone like me, I need to get the Chelsea decision right. I've only got one space, right? Unless I decide to take hits to get rid of your 4.2 striker and that sort of thing. Rodgers is a really tricky one because I appreciate the most on paper that it offers the most logical long-term 90 minutes, etc., etc. But the one I came away from just thinking I've been really sleeping on this was Warry Hilson, to quote you. Do you know? And the two things really impressed me just watching the highlights. And by the way, if Jossie's listening, you were right. Yeah, we were wrong. We had no idea that he was going to be this good.
Yeah, but hang on a second. We were talking about how good Harry Wilson. We were talking about how good Harry Wilson can be in like game week 4 or game week 5
minutes and such. Yeah,
we did say I remember. No, but we talked a lot about Harry Wilson, didn't we? It was literally game week 4 or 5. But we said then he's always been an output monster. He's always been an output monster. That's what we said. But he's never had the minutes in like 4 or 5 years. We talked about him being the Salah in the Championship and his first signing, and looked through all his minutes every season. So we were talking loads about him, but he is getting the minutes now.
Yeah, as mentioned, and I have to say, the thing that really struck me that was interesting. You know how when you look deliberately at highlights for players, occasionally you're surprised by what it is that sort of turns you on, so to speak. And it's not necessarily the curling finish from the corner of the area. Like, for example, I remember one of the games I was watching was, when they played City and Foden did his kind of great brace and, hit one from a corner, sort of 20 yards out, instinctive, brilliant finish, that sort of thing. It wasn't that kind of thing that I was impressed by. It was actually that every now and again in the highlights, it was like, there's someone who is racing full pelt to get into the box at sort of 85, 80 minutes to get on the end of something. And it was like, Is that Harry Wilson? And it was him just like really and I think this is someone I'm always worried about his fitness, and it wasn't the stuff on the ball. It was him like really running past Jimenez, getting into the box, etc. Really kind of full pelt, etc. He looks kind of really much fitter than I imagined that he ever was, to tell you the truth. And the other thing which you probably noticed from the highlights reel that I kind of sent you is that, you know, that the finish for that cup game at the weekend, sorry, the assist that he got, just this nonchalant outside of the right boot kind of flick to, I think it was Kevin or something at the far post. It looks like the best player on that team at the moment, that he knows it, right? So I think that's the thing. I just watched it thinking, this guy has got some bloody swagger. He's got some swagger, but he's also looking incredibly fit. So the problem I had with it is I went into this week thinking, I don't want to buy anyone if I am buying anyone at all before game week 24, because I want to have, the full plethora of transfers in game week 24. I don't want to buy anyone, certainly, that I wouldn't have on a wild card in that week. You know, that kind of logic of like, I don't want it to be someone short term. So personally, I hate the idea of buying a Spurs midfielder or whatever for 2 weeks, or a Gakpo or whatever. It just doesn't do anything for me whatsoever. But with him, I thought, I don't even know whether I would have him. But after, I have to be honest, after a bit more of a intensive scrutiny, so to speak, I'm like, well, he's not the worst person to have knocking around, is he? He just looks absolutely on it at the moment. So my only fear is, like we've always said, okay, the minutes are great at the moment, but the things that would put me off 5 weeks ago are the same things that would put me off now. Is it suddenly going to combust? And of course, there is a little bit of a noise about whether he would leave during this transfer window because of being a free agent in the summer. But I don't think so. That seems a bit rich. I don't think they would do that, given how form he is in at the moment. So yeah, I have to say I was really surprised. I was expecting to go into it thinking much more either nothing or Enzo or whatever it is, because it's very kind of logical. But it's either nothing or Warry Hilson.
Yeah, well, we don't want Warry Hilson, do we? We want
Harry Wilson.
Hoping that he stays Harry Wilson. But yeah, I mean, I can't deny any of that. I mean, one thing is his numbers aren't amazing, so he is massively overperforming. I don't think that, like, this is the thing about Harry Wilson is, I've got, obviously the overperformance is form, but again, he has always been an output merchant. Like, that's the thing that I do really like about Harry Wilson. He always has been. His scoring rate over the last 4 or 5 years is actually pretty similar to what this is right now in terms of minutes per goal and stuff. Sort of, he's had like 1,000 minutes typically in most seasons in the last 4, last 4 or 5, and he's still got 6 goals, 7 goals. So I think I'm just slightly worried that he'll get injured. He hasn't ever been able to play that long. So I don't know. That's one thing. It doesn't feel like massively robust. So it's difficult to get on him. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think he's an amazing pick, because he's just, when I say about output merchant, I don't just mean he's getting loads of, it's because he's one of those guys, a bit like Bruno Fernandes. Every time he gets the ball, that he's thinking, like, his first thought is, can I score? And then if he thinks he can't score, is, can I make a pass that gives it to someone who can score? That's the type of player he is. But then you combine that with like incredible technical ability, and it's like, it's so consistent. That ability to shoot well is so consistent. It's almost like, that's what technical ability is. Like, it slows the game. Time slows for him temporarily when he's about to hit it. And it's how often does one of his shots get blocked, like immediately in front of him? Almost never. Because technically he's able to shift the ball and move it, shoot and get a good shot off just so easily, because he's so good. And then, that shot is invariably an incredibly good shot. He's just got an absolute wand of a left foot. So I agree. Like, I would love to have him right now. I would. Again, and I might, so a lot of these things are in combination, because, for example, in my position, if I want to say go to Cunha to Fernandes, which seems a bit sideways, but I'm not sure it is all that sideways, given how frustrating.
I can't do it. Yeah.
I mean, obviously Fernandes is a better pick, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily, you could just watch what happens with United first, because Cunha could easily be the one who, for example, Cunha could brace this weekend easily, for all we know. But for example, if you wanted to make some long-term moves and get a bit of extra cash, for a lot of people, need to do something to facilitate that. So I do as well. For example, I can't do Cunha to Gordon, but I could do, I can't do Cunha to Fernandes, but I could do Cunha to Fernandes if I did, say, Gordon to Wilson.
Well, that's exactly what I'm thinking of, just a little bit, because so early kickoff this week and next week, I think I might be wrong about this, but I know Man City are in a lot of early kickoffs, and of course a problem that I have, that I put on myself, that you don't, is I've got Cherky as well, whose numbers are amazing, but
I don't think that's a problem.
But no, hopefully not. But there is this. I think he's benched tonight, actually, from the sounds of it as well. So hopefully he does play. But he's someone who, come game week 24, I'd be surprised if he's not moved on for someone else. I'm not really sure yet. But if for example, I heard that he was benched as well, then there is that kind of room for getting Wilson and Bruno in, and just at least they're two picks that I'm fairly comfortable with going forward and that sort of thing. So that's just a little bit on the back of my mind as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking as well, because I'm just looking at this sort of scout table that I had up, and I'm thinking about similar picks that people won't like, but it's important to bring them up because, like, the model likes someone like Tavernier that that Review likes a lot. That's quite interesting, though. It's still quite interesting to me, because that's certainly an opportunity, because I don't think many people are going to go there. In terms of comparing it with Harry Wilson, is someone like Tavernier or even Brooks, for example. But I think I'm totally scared. I'm totally scared that he will break down. But the boxes thing are there. I mean, his minutes have been very good. I expect them to be better. Although they've got Brighton away and then Liverpool at home. So that's also one of the problems with Tavernier, is the next two aren't great, and that's what people are looking at the moment. But then the fixtures are amazing after that.
Yeah, agreed.
But it does help a lot if we assume that he is on penalties. And maybe he's not. That's the thing about Tavernier. So maybe it's not. Maybe Krupi's on penalties or something like that. But you think if he is on penalties, then he's a very good pick. But yeah, that's just reminding me that it's Brighton and Liverpool, which does make that difficult. I think it's pretty close with him, though, and Wilson. I still do, just because of those. I can't help but feel that he's more robust a player. He's got a pretty high ceiling historically. And if he's on pens, it's very good. I don't know what it is about Wilson. I do think Wilson is really good. It does feel a little bit fragile, because the numbers are, I mean, they're within those 90s that you mentioned there are a couple of games. There is, in like 2 or 3 of the last, 7 or 8 games, there are games where he's just got like 0.02 XGI. There's just nothing there at all in the game. And maybe I wasn't watching him closely enough in those games, but there are games where I think it's easier for Wilson to disappear. I still think he's a great pick. I just worry slightly that with that flaw, where if he does disappear, if he doesn't get those couple of chances, you're not going to see penalties. Not going to see penalties, set pieces, DEFCON, all that sort of stuff.
Well, he's got corners and free kicks for what it's worth, or some anyway.
Free kicks, of course, yeah. So there's something there. I do like it. He is definitely high up on my list. I mean, the fixtures are really good long term as well, aren't they, by the way? So I'm just trying to put up a couple of different players at the same time. But the fixtures are really good. I mean, if he stays fit, it's really good all season, by the way. So you got Leeds, Brighton, then Man United, Everton, City away, and Sunderland away, Spurs, West Ham, Forest, Burnley. Nice fixtures.
Woof.
And you like them from an attacking point of view.
But yeah, I don't disagree with you on Tavernier. I mean, they're both. Again, if you had both in your squad right now, you've got a lot of cash to play with elsewhere. And this is another reason why I think those people could easily match players a little bit higher, and provides you with a bit more opportunity than I know that everyone is keen on the 4.5 forwards at the moment, but I don't know. I think there's potentially some value around the corner in midfield coming, and obviously Ndiaye will come back, Sarr will come back soon. So I think it's worth being open to whatever that second striker spot is.
What are your thoughts on Rodgers? Because obviously Rodgers is someone that I struggle with generally. And I do like him as a player, and I kind of like him as a pick. One thing I noticed just before you come to you is like looking at his fixtures, because the returns recently. Because he's obviously getting better and better, and he's obviously that's my perception, and he's becoming more and more of a pick. And a lot of people are sort of saying 2 or 15 type thing, like he has had like 3 15-point hauls, I think, and then he doesn't do a lot in between. But actually, it's still quite hard to read, because look at his fixtures recently. He's actually just not returned in the games you wouldn't really expect him to return in, and has in the ones that you would. So he's blanked the last game against Palace away. He blanked against Arsenal away, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home. In the last like 8 weeks. So it's just pretty much the games that you would. I mean, that's Arsenal twice and Chelsea away, and then he's returned with Forest at home, United at home, West Ham away, Brighton. He's returned in all the games that you kind of want him to, and then he's got 3 points at Wolves, and then he's got 15 points at Leeds before that. So actually, it's quite hard to read, because, I mean, even if you could go further back, he doesn't return against Liverpool away or Man City, but then he does against Spurs, Burnley, Fulham. So it's a funny one with Rodgers. I don't know what you think, but there's not again. It's not really ever been avenues there, and there's not really ever been, I don't know, much flaw there. But there is 90 minutes.
There is 90 minutes, yeah, and he does look in good nick. There's no doubt about it. He's getting in reasonably good positions. I still think Villa share it around, at least on the eye. They certainly share it around a fair bit, right? McGinn scoring a brace the other day was a good example of this. It's just like, what the hell was going on there? I think the difference was, but my takeaway watching Rodgers and kind of Wilson highlights is, okay, Wilson, I know that his team slightly worse, but he is the fulcrum of everything at the moment. And Rodgers is definitely involved a great deal, but there were a number of Aston Villa goals where you watch them and you do that thing and you're scanning around and being like, where the bloody hell is Rodgers? And he's not there, right? There's still a fair amount of that going on, at least on the eye. But actually, what I wanted to do, I know this is cheating, right? But I'm just going to give you some XGI numbers from the Villa player in question recently, right? And I just think it's worth noting for people. I know that they will potentially not be interested in this, but okay. So Crystal Palace away, there's a 0.96. Nottingham Forest at home, 0.77. This is combined XGI. Arsenal away, 1.61. Chelsea away, 0.69. Now that's not Rodgers, that's Watkins. And I do think that this is an interesting one to keep an eye on, because I know that you and I are get very nervous around players that are fruity for minutes, right? But obviously there's a lot of rumours at the moment surrounding Marlon. He is when he is on the pitch at the moment, Watkins is looking in really sharp form. And to tell you the truth, this probably won't happen, as you know, because you know me, when it'll get to this point in time. No. But with the Ekitike spot in my team, this is one of the things that is an option to me that some managers might not necessarily want to go round. And obviously, if we get to the game week 24, which is the week around the end of the transfer window, and Marlon is schlepped off to Italy on loan or something, it might not happen, but that could be a very, very interesting kind of avenue to go down, because he looks in good nick to me. So I still kind of want to buy Watkins more than I do Rodgers, but I know that I appreciate there is virtually no logic in it. But I'm still keeping my mind open to that one. And I know you can get both. But in a lot of structures, you would struggle to cram in Saka and Palmer if you buy Watkins. So that's just another thing at the back of the mind to think about as well. So I don't know. I know there's quite a lot of logic behind it. I wouldn't go against it, but I'm not sure that I am interested in going there yet.
Rodgers is just a bit more restrictive as well, isn't he? With the price of 7.5 of just like
7.6 now, I think. Yeah,
7.6 or whatever it is. Like it doesn't allow you to. It doesn't make things easier in 2 weeks' time. So I just struggle with it putting a lot. I just struggle with someone like Rodgers putting a lot onto one game, which is effectively Everton at home, and anything could happen. I'm not sure how good a fixture that is really. Everton are so unpredictable. And, just looking at his numbers there, his last 6 game weeks, his XGI is 1.35, and everyone's raving about him. The numbers just aren't. They're not great. they're not great.
Yeah, he's no Harry Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he isn't at the moment. He isn't. Harry Wilson's a better pick at the moment because he's like nearly £2 million cheaper.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think it's difficult to go for Rodgers over Wilson because I just don't like something that makes, as you say, just rolling at the moment. I still view it. I know we all think we know what we're going to do in 24, or we think we know what moves we're going to make, but we don't. So there's always, there's extra power in rolling, and there's an extra potentially like 4 points in rolling. There's an awful lot there still. So I'm not sure Rodgers does enough for me. Someone like Wilson, someone cheaper, can facilitate more. Who else were we just going to talk about? Oh, I just wanted to mention really quickly, just on midfield, just because he's not been mentioned much. And to be honest, the price point is, I think, is equally sort of restrictive and preventative for me anyway. It doesn't allow me to get, for example, Bruno in 2 moves. Otherwise, I would have been very interested in Sharda.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Sharda's, again, it's just like, we can look at season long or whatever in a minute, but I was looking at last 4 weeks. I thought it was last 6 weeks. That was last 4 weeks, not last 6. But I mean, last 4 game weeks. If this is loaded on last 4 game weeks. Sharda's non-pen XGI is 4.29. I mean, he did get a lot of that in.
Yeah,
he did
3 against Bournemouth.
Yeah, that I know, but it's just what Brentford are in terms of. They are this team that I don't know that kind of they always have been, and as I say, they're just 2.0. They're just an extension of what they were under Frank, and maybe even they're better. But they are this team that operate on numbers and big chances, and kind of they're clicking at the moment. They're clicking. You see every time you watch Brentford. I mean, you've seen Thiago recently. Thiago's got these 5 goals, but he could have had more. And Sharda could have had more. In terms, they're just. I know Dango's coming back soon, but I mean, the number of times where it's sort of like, is it Thiago or is it Sharda who's in the right place? It's kind of both of them. I actually, again, I look at this Chelsea game and I think there's going to be goals in it for sure, is what I think. I think that we could easily see Brentford win, but I think it's a pretty good game. Again, that given that Chelsea play it's Wednesday, Saturday, whereas Brentford have had a whole week, they're on fire. I just think he's a bit of he's you know what I mean? He's a bit sort of talismanic. It's a bit like going into, like we did previously with Brentford, where we might have Tony and Bumo, or Bumo and Sharda, or something like that. Because they go into Forest at home after that. So you talk about 2 fixtures, is that I like Chelsea away, and then they go to Forest at home. Anyway, I just thought it was worth mentioning him. Unfortunately, I can't really get there easily, and otherwise I do quite like it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Is there anyone else?
No, I don't think we want to necessarily go down the Bruno G route of conversation. It seems like a waste of time, really. I think if you've missed that one, you're not going to go there now, are you?
Yeah, and Gordon, I mean, I own Gordon. It's incredibly frustrating. I'm going to be keeping it. That's the other thing in terms of my transfers or rolling. I'll be keeping a close eye on predicted lineups and stuff. I think he's playing tonight, isn't he? It might be, but and Baker messaged before saying it looked like Gordon and Murphy on the wings, but that's not actually ideal, because that sounds like they're giving Barnes his rest, because he's the one who's been the best at the moment. I think I'll be keeping a close eye on the predicted lineups, because Gordon needs to play, and it's such a frustrating watch, because even if he starts, he's got to do something in the first 60 minutes, or he comes off. He isn't, but it's a funny one, because all the fans think that he's absolutely garbage and he's been playing crap, and sort of the objective people think he's been playing quite well. And I think he has been I think he's been all right. I mean, he pretty much set up his own penalty on the weekend with that great pass. He's done a lot of good stuff. But obviously it's very frustrating. So people like me who've got him at the moment kind of want to hold, but I don't feel good about him. You mentioned Cherky, but I will just say quickly, I mean, I hope that he keeps his place in the team, because he's just so good. He is just ridiculously good. I mean, he's someone as well who strikes me as like an output merchant, constantly wanting to make something happen, but doing it in a really calm and calculated way. Like doing things right again, like he's playing football where he just looks like he's on a different planet to everyone else. He's just like, he just expects to do the things that create goals, and he that's what it looks like every time. When he came on the other game, was it in the cup? He completely changed the game straight away. Was it? And I can't remember. Was it the cup or was it against Brighton? I'm getting mixed up now with the FA Cup this weekend. It's all blending into one. But he was just looked sensational. I didn't realise until I saw Match of the Day, by the way, that sitter that Haaland missed that was set up by Cherky. But yeah, like I find it hard to see him not being a regular first team starter when he's just that good. But of course, you never really know what Pep's thinking. But
no, it's a tricky one. I mean, I don't think anyone's jumping in there at the moment, are they? But it's it's someone I have to kind of hang on to for a few more weeks and just see how that one plans out. Really.
One thing I will say on City as well is, because it's on Pete's question as well while we're talking about midfielders, I still don't see an issue for Foden, really. I mean, that might change, but I still think that the most nailed guy is Foden. I still think that they don't operate the same without him. I still think that he does things nobody else can do, and that he's on. I mean, he's just his all-round game and his all-round contribution and everything that he does is just so central to them. And I just think he's absolutely incredible. He's also the best in terms of capability of minutes. He's always been someone who can play every minute of every game and is just fine. So I really don't see Foden as a issue, really. And obviously he has had still chances in the last few weeks when he's blanked. There's been 2 or 3 good chances that he could have easily scored. So I certainly don't see him as an issue. Semenyo could be amazing. I mean, I know it doesn't mean anything against Exeter or whatever it was, bloody 10-1. I just think his minutes are just completely unknown, They'll likely be all over the place. I think in terms of minutes, I would have it as Foden and then Cherky and then Semenyo pretty comfortably. It could be that Semenyo is above Cherky in minutes. I still think that Foden's in a different conversation to either of them in terms of minutes. So, yeah, I just think he's still a great pick. And when we get to 24, if we're not wildcarding, because if you're wildcarding 24, you're almost certainly not got Foden, which is fine. But then if you do have him, it's like, everyone's got rid of Foden on a wildcard, or a lot of people sold him. And it's really nice to have him.
Well, just on that, I mean, this is another reason why, personally, if you're bringing in a Cunha replacement this week, this is another thing that's a little bit more. Well, if you were bringing in a Tavernier or a Wilson, at least you're not stretching those funds and blocking yourself out of anything. Whereas, bringing in someone who's kind of 7, 8, 9 million, etc., it's a little bit more a question. So I think that's just a little bit of a background note there as well. I suppose we should talk just very quickly, because the other player that was mentioned there, completely different part of the pitch, but Keane, as you can imagine, incredibly frustrating for I know. If you're listening to this, instead of watching, then good for you, because Danny's looking smug again. But yeah, he's obviously and failed with his appeal, because obviously they're pulling the ponytail or whatever it is that he did. So he's tricky because, to be honest, I own and I have absolutely zero intention of selling, even though I know there's a very good chance that he faces some risk going forward, because I just don't think, unless if you have several Arsenal defenders at the moment, I'm not really sure why you would bother spending the time bringing in a defender. But that's just where I sit on it. I don't really see many people as particularly appealing. I think if you're looking to save a bit of money and you want to bring in something like a Chris Richards for 4.4 or whatever it is, something like that, that's kind of fair enough. But I don't know whether you sit on this, Danny, but I don't really think there are. If you've got 4 other playing defenders, I'd roll instead of replacing Keane personally. But any thoughts?
Yeah, I think transfers are just too important right now, so I can't see who you'd want to go to. There's just no one jumping out. I'm just looking, and Newcastle all over the place defensively. Palace, Sunderland away, and players missing, and Liverpool. I'm not even expecting a clean sheet out of them, but with Burnley at home, I can't. So yeah, I just think if you can, just keep him there and roll him. It's better to save the transfers. Did you see what they said about Keane in that game, by the way?
No.
I don't know why I've not heard anyone say this, but I don't know if the commentators were joking, but they said that at the club they described Michael Keane as the best finisher in the team.
Yeah, well, that's probably true there, isn't it? Other than Ninja, yeah.
That's what they said. Which is obviously I'm sitting there at that point when they said that. I was sitting there and he's obviously just scored, and I'm just seething. I'm so fed up with fucking Michael Keane that I've not owned all these weeks, and he's gotten all these goals and points, and I'm sitting there with fucking Tarko. And now they're talking, and I've just brought Tarko in, obviously on the basis that Keane was probably injured, and they're describing Keane as the best finisher at the club, and I'm like, you don't take the piss. And then he hits the post 2 minutes later. So yeah, I'm not trying to rub it in or anything. I'm just saying that it was pretty painful at that point. It was like I'd already had a 15-pointer locked in my head, so it was a relief for non-Keane owners, I've got to tell you.
I mean, I did get a bit of info from our good friend of the pod, Ken, who I just wanted to find out a bit more about the situation there, and he said that O'Brien has been really good when playing at centre back, and so it is very much a case where he could use these 2 or 3 games to cement his place at centre back. So I think that's probably as much of a concern as Branthwaite, to be honest with you. I'm just going to take my chances, and if I get through to 24 and I'm not wild carding, I'll hang on to him and see how it goes for another game.
And just on that as well, like,
yeah.
For me, this is just another not that example, but I saw lots of people sharing stuff from Everton fans. It drives me nuts. People go to fans all the time for opinions, and I'm like, it's so rarely the thing to do, in my opinion. So rarely the thing to do. Go to fans to find out who's going to play. And, the big thing that everyone was sharing was like this Everton fan, and a lot of Everton fans say this, that like, it could be Tarkowski who loses his place because he's not been very good recently. And I'm like, honestly, I'm just saying, it's like, beware of fans. Tarkowski is not losing his place. Forget sharing these bloody fan accounts that say this sort of crap, because it's nonsense, and it's not going to help your minutes projections at all. It's just nonsense. So there's no chance. He's too much of a total leader, and he's the one who dictates the entire mood of the team, and he's the rum bastard that no one wants to play against, and he's single-handedly the defense. It doesn't matter if he's playing well or not. He ain't getting dropped.
I mean, actually, just to simultaneously agree and disagree with you at the same time, what was quite interesting on this chat with Ken is that he was, a lot of people have been talking up the kind of anecdotal Bruno Fernandes coaching, Sesko, blah, 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 on the pitch kind of thing. Well, he was talking about how effective Tarkowski is for giving advice to the right back, like keeping them in position, coaching them through the game, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's the kind of stuff that, when you're a fan of a club and you really do watch how the players operate properly, that's the kind of stuff you want to see from a nailed player who's a fixture in the team, is, the person who's kind of commanding it in the way that you couldn't see that in highlights and stuff. So I think that's worth taking into account there as well. So let's move on from Keane and co. But I think I would just say, if you can, leave it for now. But I think if you're not, and you have a similar price spot, I mean, obviously, again, probably someone like a Richards or an Anderson or someone like that, or going down to Alderete, etc., is probably the way. There aren't many good high impact defenders to bring in at the point. I did see someone earlier mention Frimpong, but I can't pretend that I have enough awareness of where they stand, but I probably would avoid it personally. Strikers, just a quick note on this, because I mentioned retaining the option of someone meaty in that second spot rather than going right down. This is probably because I have that kind of gooey spot, and I'm frustrated with it. But what do you think? I mean, if you were starting again, so to speak, would you be going for these double 4.5s? I don't, by the way, oppose either pick particularly. It's just a point that if you're going from here, using transfers to plan to play those players is still a bit of a stretch for me. I think it's a possibility on wildcard though. What are your thoughts on the structure of strikers? Because obviously you're a very happy Thiago owner.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that's our friend FPL Psycho there with that question, isn't it? And can you remember the bit that you missed off of his question? There's a bit at the end of the question that isn't there now that I remember seeing on Twitter.
Oh yeah, no, I always, to be honest with you, and apologies if you send in a question, I am likely to tinker with your wording
No,
for our own purposes. But yeah,
he didn't. It wasn't a question, but after that question, it says, "I don't want to talk about Thiago."
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I'm afraid that the answer for me is that we do need to talk about Thiago. I just think that Thiago is offering you something that no one else is. No one else is really, in terms of, again, the way the team's set up. He's just an absolute out and out number 9, who's just he's just on the end of, let's say, these Brentford big chances, and he's kind of got everything in the sense of, I know he's not necessarily like technically supreme or anything like that, but he is fearless. Like, he'll do anything. He'll round the keeper. He'll take on a defender one-on-one. He runs last man. He's always in the box. He's great in the air. He's a proper number 9, and he's on form, and he's really good, and he's massive, and he's just what Brentford do. And sometimes, I mean, those things might change, but sometimes you need to be on board. You need to be on board with what you're seeing. It's like that. It's like Danny Ings that season, or Chris Wood that season. But I think with a little bit more to it, a little bit more of the underlines, a little bit more of logic in terms of the team, and the team are very attacking. And he's got penalties as well, by the way. And he's got Chelsea away this week. I think it's a pretty good fixture for the reasons I've already said. Then he's got Forest at home, great fixture. Villa away, not bad. Newcastle away, not great, not terrible. Then is your bad fixture, Arsenal. And then after that...
Oh, they're insane, aren't they?
They're just ridiculously good. Brighton, Burnley, Bournemouth, Wolves,
onwards, you are going to regret.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, even if I'm drafting a wild card, at any point, really, he's in the wild card for me. And I might look for ways that I might... I'd pretty much just bench him against Arsenal if I could. And if I had to play him, I wouldn't be that bothered.
Yeah, it's at home, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my answer, and I can't really deviate from that answer. I mean, it's interesting to me where you go with the other one. I don't know enough about Mane yet, and I've seen that he's played these 2 games, and I've seen that he's good, and I do like, if the minutes are there, that's great. I don't know how long that's going to last, because if the minutes are really good, I do like that. I mean, I did like his celebration. Did you see his celebration? He was giving it the whole. He was like, I'm here. It was like a big boy stuff, So that's not a normal 18-year-old. So that I like that. That's obviously the confidence to sort of. Yeah. So, but then there's Krupi, and if Krupi's minutes, Krupi's the one. If his minutes do look good, he could be sensational. So.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's be. I mean, obviously, I think most people again are not going to bring him in with a free transfer, are they? But by game week 24, it should be obvious what's going to happen there in terms of whether he can expect to start. I do think he's largely out of the game, more when he's not starting up top. He doesn't really get as involved, but he is one of those players who essentially all you're looking for in an entire game. It just reminded me a bit of Callum Wilson on this score. Is he might not do anything, but then he'll score. So he is one of those kind of players who's not high involvement, but if he's on the wing, but obviously for 4.6 or whatever it is, with their run of fixtures from 24, he'd be an insane pick. So I'd rather not make that decision now personally, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's who to pick on a wild card out of those 2. But as I say, for me, Thiago's pretty much a must, actually, in my view, in terms of how I would see it. And I also do like the structure more. I do think it gives you, there's a lot more flexibility when you've got 2 up front, just in terms of who you can rotate and not having to be sort of 4-5-1 every game, or there's feels a bit less choice and flexibility in what you can do when you've literally just got 2. Because if Krupi isn't playing every game, then suddenly you've got 2 guys and strikers that you don't want to play. You don't mind having some points on the bench, but you don't want to play them. So you're suddenly a bit stuck there. Whereas the 2 up front just keeps you really quite fluid in terms of what you can switch between with your midfield and your defenders.
Oh, a quick. I'm just going to give a quick shout out because I never really give him any love, but he does incredibly well in our mini league. So Benji Yag, he's good to go, but he's been enjoying the pod and he's third in the mini league. So congratulations on that, Benji Yag. You are quite rightly high on that leaderboard. Very good player indeed. Let's finish off this kind of bits and pieces here with a quick chat on Wildcard 24. We hope. Well, I won't talk it up now in case it doesn't happen, but we will have a very special guest for Wildcard 24 or week 24 anyway, who will be very helpful for that week. So we'll talk more about the wildcard in that week. But for those planning it now, do you have any kind of outline thoughts, or knocked over my microphone, on the validity of it? I guess we've touched on it here and there throughout the pod anyway, but...
Yeah, we kind of already have, and I don't want to repeat too much. I mean, what I already said was that the big, the opportunity that it was. I mean, first of all, I will say, I think that people aren't pro early wildcard enough. I say this every year, every single year. A lot of it's driven by models. Ultimately, even if people don't realize it is being driven by models, it is, because a lot of it, what's optimal will spread in terms of what the fixtures look like, will spread in terms of what you can theoretically get the most EV from, and in terms of bench boost, wildcarding into a bench boost and this and that and so on. And you've got to be a little bit careful about what exactly it is you're being led by in terms of like theoretical EV and points in the future for this and that. And it's fine. It's not that that's the wrong thing to do. But you do need to look at your team really objectively and say, if you've got loads of problems and things you want to fix, or a few problems and things you want to fix, or there's a really nice fixture switch and so on, like go early. We know loads about the team. You should be able to pick a really good 15 that mean that you can build up transfers, that you can attack the weeks now. That's what's in front of you. And I always think like there's so much there to take. It's like running an 800-meter race. I mean, if you really want to break the world record, you're not always going to go out really slow and save yourself for the last, go out strong. And this is where the real potential is to sort of just keep that up and maintain it. And that's always been my approach.
Do you know what? I think one thing just to add there, which I think is quite important. Now, you would expect us, I know that on serious FPL pods, of course, it's all about optimal decisions and all of the rest of it. But I've spoken to so many people who lately are kind of teetering on the brink with, whether they think they can get anywhere this season, and they've maybe lost a bit of luster for the season. If you're on the edge about it, right, and you think you can see both paths, etc., I know this is going to sound like a ridiculous piece of advice, but if you do it just to give a shit again, that's fine. If you do it just because you're not sure about your kind of your direction of travel, etc., and you just want to care again and give yourself a chance, roll that dice. I don't think that's perfectly within the bounds of reason to go that way. It's perfectly okay to do that. I mean, like with my own team, it's very much kind of you could go either way, and you can make a logical argument either way. And at this point in time, I don't know whether I need to particularly. So it's a bit of a debate, but I think it's fine to view it that way as well. Too many people are worried about, how am I going to handle this game week in the far future? I think it is okay to chance your arm.
Exactly, I totally agree, and that's always overplayed in terms of what there is in the future, and it's always overplayed in terms of this wildcard and into a bench boost and what difference that really makes, because ultimately, how much you're going to change your team, for example, for a bench boost or for that one double game week, has implications for what it looks like around that as well. Typically, very generally, you just have the best picks, and then you adapt your team a bit for those double game weeks anyway. Which now these days we've got 5 transfers. I mean, I was used to say this in terms of the early wild card and attacking it when we could only roll to 2. And so it would be, that would make it way more difficult to navigate, for example, a blank game week or a double game week or a bench boost. That was genuinely the kind of general belief of mine then. Not saying it was always right to go early, but that people generally didn't appreciate the value of going early enough. Now we can get 5 transfers, so it's way more valuable now to go early than it was just 2 years ago or 1 year ago.
I was going to say, because that's a really good piece of advice, reflection, because something that we didn't have many years ago, potentially for a lot of people watching this are not 100% sure either way and that sort of thing. You know, if I rolled through to 24, I could wildcard and have 4 transfers in the bank. You know, it's a really interesting situation to be in. Even if I went for Warry Hilson, I'd still have 3. You know, it's a really interesting kind of position to be in. So you can still attack, you can still do things. You don't have to kind of limp through.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and
I don't know. I'm on the fence about it for my own team, but I don't think anyone should should hold back necessarily.
You know, your bench boost, not to labour the point, but that sort of thing, it's never going to be spread with amazing players. You know, if you're talking, I know that EV wise, it could be quite a lot in terms of the difference between having a Burnley player with 1 fixture and a Wolves player with 2 fixtures. But, you know, do you want to just build your whole season around this? Because, you know, there's so much luck still involved in that in terms of like the probabilities of what can happen there, that it's so easy to just overcome all of that with just one player happens to haul on your bench or whatever, you know. Whereas with an early wildcard, it's playing right in front of you, and there's you know, potentially a lot of very good weeks. So for me, there's that. Put that to one side, and that's why for me, like for a while ago, you know, from a few weeks ago, I was looking at 24 and going, I'm pretty certain I'm going to wildcard in 24. Like I've got no hesitation about that, and I don't think hesitation, you know, that's fine for me. It's not even very useful to me to be hesitant. I think it's useful to be quite decisive about that sort of thing. Because I was looking at it and thinking I could easily be 3-4 transfers in. If you wildcard, you should very reasonably expect to then be able to roll the next few weeks. So you get into 5. So for me, I was looking at it, and you know, at that time it was, as I say, it was the Chelsea swing, the Man United swing. I mean, I still don't own Gabriel, which is very painful every week.
Yeah. And you're a top manager.
Oh God, don't get me started. Yeah, you know, so I was looking at it going, well, I can get on a load of these players, and I can get Gabriel and change my goalkeeper and do this sort of stuff that I wouldn't want to do with transfers. And that is still something that I will be doing when I wildcard, lots of this stuff. But as we've said, what's changed is the big thing with the big draw was like Palmer was the big one, because it's hard to get to him and get, you know, replace it with the Rice or whatever it is and restructure everything. That's changed now in terms of 24 specifically. We don't know what it looks like when we get there. But right now, rather than me sort of knowing I'm going to, now it's like I want to make transfers maybe that allow me to maybe not wildcard in 24 if I don't want to when I get there.
Yeah.
You know, so it wouldn't be like this sort of short-term move, or I wouldn't be necessarily like as open to just getting like a Liverpool midfielder in, for example, this week.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous, I know. Yeah. So well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but also any midfielder. But you know, so anyway, I need to think about what that looks like, because I can now instead. So for example, I could have, you know, you're talking about 4 transfers by then. So I might be looking at something like there. I get Bruno Fernandes in. I may even also do the Gabriel switch somehow if I really want to, which is not ideal because you're spending transfers. It wouldn't be ideal, but we'll have to see how much I want to put it off. But if 24 isn't as great as it looked and it isn't as big a swing, and I've ticked some of those boxes in terms of maybe I've got Bruno Fernandes, maybe I've got a Chelsea pick like Enzo Fernandez, or maybe I don't really want one, or maybe I do bring in like, you know, maybe I bring in the Chelsea keeper and get Gabriel or something like that. All of a sudden, it's not as big a swing to do it, and then it becomes, can you buy an extra week or 2 to actually get more information, to actually know more about Palmer or someone else, and maybe then the wildcard becomes a bit flexible. You know, maybe then you just wildcard in 25, maybe you wildcard in 26. I think that's, any of those things are fine. Just depends on what your team looks like and how much you want to change it. So yeah, that comes back to it's team dependent, you know. So if you can't get to 24 and you feel happy about lots of those, you know, if you really still feel your team is behind and you're not happy with it and you can't get to a Bruno easily and you've not got the Arsenal picks that you want, then I'd just wildcard. Absolutely fine.
I mean, I know that it's impossible to say at this point in time, but how, if you had to put a percentage on it, are you in the kind of, I've spoken to a good friend of the pod, Spencer, for example, he sounded like he was close to 100% yes on it earlier on. Mikey, our good friend, leaning towards it because he wants to kickstart his season again. Are you in that kind of certainty, or is it more sort of judge it in 24 and see how you feel?
Yeah, it's very hard to answer right now, but I think in my head, if I had to answer that question right now, I would say that about 2 or 3 days ago, I would have said I was about 80 or 90% sure that I would wildcard 24. And a week ago, I would have said I was about 80 or 90% sure. And I would say that I'm now about, I would say it's probably about 40%, 30 maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I'm in that kind of middling zone. Because like a lot of people, you can walk it through and work it out. And the only thing, like I said, I wouldn't do anything other than a move that would not risk something in 24 at this point, which I know is playing with a handbrake on, but well, we'll come to our teams in a minute, and that will help us talk it through. But it's somewhere in that kind of middling category. Mark, your question about midfield 5, I don't know whether we are in a good space to kind of answer that particularly now. I think, but I don't know. Are there any kind of players that you feel like are absolute dead certs to be in your midfield for the next 6 to 8 game week, something like that? I guess Bruno is top of the list probably.
Yeah, Bruno, still like Foden. We've already covered Saka, Rice, Palmer, Enzo. It's very difficult. Depends on how much money you've got. I do like Sharda if you can just go there.
Yeah, especially for plugging him in for that lovely run after 27. You didn't say Harry Wilson. You must have been a mistake. Thank you. Good. Don't ruin it. Okay. We'll have a bit more of a think actually, Mark, and we can always drop you a note. He's doing really well, Mark. Well done, Mark.
Yeah, I do like. It's probably worth saying. I do like Boomo in 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, another good. Because this is again another watching brief, and a player like that could be someone that wildcards this week would have no idea is any use in game week 24 or 5, whereas he's a good example. Let's go to our teams then. I'm going to skip forward a bit. I know we could talk about fixtures this week, but I don't know whether people were very kind of forward thinking in their ideas this week. I suppose, obviously, just a quick reference, but the Liverpool numbers are the ones that presumably are. I mean, you're going to have to get the bicycle clips and the sort of robust trousers this weekend as a non-Ekatike owner, but you got Virgil.
I am. Yeah, I don't feel hopeful about Virgil at all. He's absolutely useless. One of the worst picks that I've ever owned as well. He's probably he's him and Gordon. I mean, he's worse than Gordon.
Wow.
He's been absolutely shocking, Van Dijk. So I don't think Liverpool even clean, to be honest. I don't.
No.
And he won't even Defcon. And I only saw the FA Cup. He hit the post, bloody FA Cup on the weekend. Was it the FA Cup or was it the league game? Anyway, he hit the post. I'm getting confused. But in the last game, ridiculous. But yeah, just have to hope that Thiago pulls through again, because I think Brentford are pretty low there. Actually, I think that's a bit generous for Chelsea, given the turnaround.
I'd be thinking more like 1.4 or something. But obviously they know what they're doing at Solly.
Yeah. It's just the turnaround is just. But yeah, no, it'll be horrible. It will not be nice Saturday afternoon, that Liverpool game. But again, objective me, Liverpool, I still don't think are very good. Like Wirtz is playing much better now, and Ekatike is very good, and I think they can combine and do stuff. But I'm not convinced that Liverpool are very good.
I have to say, one thing that jumps out to my eye there is Fulham's numbers. Obviously, do look shocking, don't they? Which is a little bit worrying. But yeah, well, who needs numbers, right?
Could be Wary Hilson this weekend.
Could be Wary, yeah. All right, let's go to Europe first. Do you want to read out your team?
Yeah, so Raya in goal, Van Disney, Timber, Hall, Lacroix, Cunha, Gordon, Foden, Saka, Thiago, Haaland captain, Tarkowski first sub, the legendary Devaney, and Mark Guew on the bench. So pretty boring team, really. Well, it feels boring to me. I don't feel hopeful of a Newcastle clean sheet, unfortunately. They've just not been great defensively, and Wolves have looked a lot better. But Hall himself has been fantastic, really. I mean, he looks like such a great pick. He's so attacking. He's so close to sort of being on the end of so much stuff. So he's a real high ceiling player. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to envisage them just getting a clean in any kind of, especially these away games. But Lacroix was I really appreciated Lacroix's points last week for me. He got me a little 8-pointer, and unfortunately no bonus. And he normally does really well in the bonus, and he got no bonus and a 0-0. So that was a shame. He was high in the bonus as well for most of the game. But my God, I needed that 8 points from him last week. And so Palace, obviously, I feel quite good about. It's always nice when they get back to a clean sheet. You always feel like it's a bit of a reset for them, because the teams that just go off the rail, aren't they? And then they just don't clean for like 2 months. But the fact that they did against Villa, I mean, Sunderland away is a very tough game. But I think Palace are the sort of team that can handle what Sunderland are a little bit. They're just pretty pretty big on the set pieces and all that sort of stuff. But Palace can deal with that. There's a little bit of hope there for me, because they'll have Richards back. Looks like Gay's going to probably stay, by the way, till the summer. It seems like.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so they're back to sort of, they're getting close to back to being 1 game a week. I can't remember when their European game is. But yeah, Palace is just, you feel like they might be turning the corner. So feel okay about that at the moment. Still no Gabriel, which is scary, real scary. That miss, by the way, at the end of the last game. Did you see Gabby Jesus?
Yeah, I did.
He was the one who basically jumped on his back, because I'm watching. He was top for bonus at that point as well. So yeah, just have to do without again. And as I say, I'm looking at it going, feel very good about Saka, feel very good about Foden, Haaland, unfortunately, as a United fan. Feel very good about Thiago, but obviously don't feel good about it in the context of the fact that everybody else owns Ekatike this weekend. So I'd just really like him to do something.
Hugo the boss.
And yeah, so it's just, you just look at it and it's Cunha and Gordon. And I need to, as I say, I need to be confident that Gordon's going to start. And, you think he should. He has played well. Eddie Howe loves him. But Barnes has been very good recently. Barnes is the one who's sort of being like, I don't mind if I'm playing on the left or the right. I just want to do what you say, boss. Gordon's being fussy and being a pain in the arse, saying I only want to play on the left, but he's not doing really enough. Murphy's always very good, very, very reliable. He's, very, very good on the right. So it's a little bit of a worry. And then even if he does start, it gets booked and gets subbed off in 60 minutes, and it's just a complete nightmare. So it's one of these things. It's like it's the thing, isn't it? It's the sunk cost fallacy sort of thing. It's difficult. I brought him in for a set of good fixtures, and he still has 2 of those left in Wolves and then Villa at home. But you've got to be really ruthless. And if I think that it's a significant worry, I could sell him. So, and then Cunha. But the problem is Cunha is kind of almost more of a problem, because he's been so unpredictable. But it's just it's the fact that it's Arsenal away after City. I don't mind City too much, because we're gonna, again, I expect United to be, decent, and I expect us to probably lose, but I expect us to be, again, when you're just attacking confidently and you just sort of, players have got the freedom, they've got 2 in a pivot, and you've got Bruno, Cunha, Bumo, and Sesko playing well. Stuff can happen. I just don't think it will against Arsenal. I think it's very different playing City at the moment to Arsenal in terms of the defence. So, yeah, I've got 2 free transfers. Everywhere I look, I'm going in these circles. I'm looking at Wari Hilson and going, yeah, okay, he looks great, but it's like Brighton, Leeds, and is it worth a transfer? And isolated, it's not really worth a transfer this week, for Cunha or for Gordon, if I think they're going to play.
Yep.
Enzo, I could even do Gordon to Enzo and Cunha to Bruno. I can afford that. I've got like 0.6 in the bank or something like that. So that kind of looks nice as well. But yeah, I keep going in these circles where I'm like, it's a lot to be able to keep 2 transfers, and it's that extra information that you think you don't know what you don't know in 2 weeks' time. So to have, say, 4 free transfers or 3 free transfers versus 2 is a big deal. Even if you're going to wildcard, even if you're going to use them, even to get the same players, it's a lot of value in being able to keep those transfers. So, yeah, it's just going around in circles. Enzo, minutes, Rodgers. So I'm either going to roll, probably, or I'm going to do, if I'm really not feeling good about Gordon's minutes or something like that, or even Cunha, I could do a double move to get Bruno Fernandes in and just go early on that. And then that sort of, again, that is part of a move where, let's just say whatever I did Enzo and Bruno, or even if it was Tavernier and Bruno, or Harry Wilson and Bruno. I then theoretically get to 24 with 2 transfers still. So I could then wildcard, I could then get Gabriel in, something like that. Or, I'd want to bring 2 players in that I want to keep long term in that midfield. So, and obviously Bruno would be one of them. So then that would allow me to sort of buy a bit more time if I didn't want a wildcard in 24. But you just sort of going then into the most ridiculous Chelsea run without really any Chelsea picks, unless I get Enzo this week. But I also, again, I think that's potentially fine. There's loads of things we've got to keep an eye on as well, by the way. Like Cucurella, just worth saying, someone like that could end up being amazing whenever he's back. Because we know that Rafinha likes, he likes his fullbacks getting really far forward, doesn't he? So that, someone like him could become amazing.
So, I think at the point where Palmer and Cucurella look like the best picks from Chelsea, I think a lot of wildcards would have to go. I know that's not the only reason, but it'd be very difficult, especially when you see what I'm going to put in front of you in a minute. But no, that sounds. I think. I guess you won't know, will you, about Gordon? You'll just have to. It's not like a leak situation, is it? You just have to make a gut call, and same with Cunha.
This is it. I'll have to look at what happens with the minutes tonight quite carefully. I will look at Neil as being the best sort of predictor. I won't go beyond that personally. I won't be asking fans. I'll have to think about it myself. I think he probably will start. I think he's still, for various reasons, he's kind of seen as the one of the best players, and he's going to the World Cup with England, and I think he has been very good. He just hasn't had the confidence to score. But maybe that penalty as well on the weekend helps a bit. He did win. He did that great pass as soon as he came on to win the penalty, scored it. Maybe that helps a bit. It's just that Barnes has been sensational. So I need to look at the sort of, because I think just quickly check for me, Rich, on Lego Mane's thingy again with the gap. What's Newcastle's gap? What's it looking like again?
Right. So what have you got? So Newcastle, obviously City tonight on a Tuesday. They don't play Wolves until a Sunday, so that's quite nice. Yeah. Then they've got pretty tight to the next game, but you're probably not worried about that at the moment, are you?
Well, that's the thing. So it depends. What is that next game in the Champions League game that they need to win or something? I can't remember now.
PSV. I don't know. Chat will have to help us out there about Newcastle's situation in the Champions League. I don't know.
Yeah. So the rest is okay there. The rest is okay. But you know me, I just can't stand 60-minute players. So even if he's going to start, I don't feel good about him actually playing more than 60 minutes, which is really crap. So I'm about 55 to 60% likely to roll, but a very serious, sort of 40 to 45% double move.
So what you're saying is, if one goes, the other will go, probably.
Probably. It seems logical, doesn't it? If you're gonna take one of them, I think there's enough. I think the reason for that is there's enough in terms of how much better I think Bruno is objectively than Cunha for the next 2.
Okay, yeah.
But so that's where I'm at.
Cool.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts before you go to yours?
No, I think in your situation, it's given that you have certain things that you really do feel like you're going to have to do in 24 with the Gabriel situation in particular. I'd forgotten that you will have to make 2 moves to get that sorted. Well, I say that unless you. Well, what is your Gabriel plan? Sorry.
I don't really have a plan, but I still don't like it. Even then, 2 moves just to sell an Arsenal defender and get an Arsenal defender. But I mean, he is pretty terrifying. I mean, it's just watching the bonus every game as well. Never mind the DEFCON and stuff. It just seems to be up there all the time, and it's just like I still find it painful that some people took a hit to swap Timber to Gabriel and it paid off. I think that's an absolutely ludicrous move. And I think it was generally a sort of a rubbish move for anyone who just did it in one transfer, but it's paid off for people.
I think the thing that is a struggle for me about your situation and the way you're thinking is I think from the way you've described it, you only feel more than sort of 70% good about one midfielder, which is Bruno.
Yeah. Basically,
that's the challenge.
I might be, I'm going to watch Chelsea and stuff like that, so I might be more convinced by Enzo or something like that. I still like Enzo. He's a 90-minute guy, isn't he? Even these tight turnarounds, I don't know though. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we went through it earlier. So the last 5 or 6 games, he's got a 63, he got a 36 or something. So even he's not completely buffeted from that.
But I mean, he's top of the midfielders of the league for non-pen XGI. I mean, he's amazing stats. He's a very difficult guy to read, but he's always, what I like about Enzo, he's always sniffing. He knows where to be. He's always trying to score the goal. He's always there. So I could be tempted to do a double move with him. But yeah, in terms of the plan for, I mean, obviously Virgil is absolutely diabolical, and it's logical for me to just play him this week at home to Burnley. But the thing I do like about the Gabriel move is obviously, in an ideal world, I do want a cheaper keeper for the rest of the season.
Yeah, who?
Well, this is the thing: it's still quite difficult to choose, then, isn't it? Because I guess it'll be easier in 24, which helps, but it's not a lot of time to see because so obviously Sanchez has then got 4 amazing fixtures, and then they're not great, and we don't really know what Rossini's Chelsea's going to look like in terms of defensively. Yeah. He could be really interesting anyway as well in terms of bonus and passing stuff, because we know that he uses the keeper as an extra man. So we're going to see loads of passes from Sanchez and probably loads of baseline bonus going up. And God knows what else.
We like that.
I know. Well, we might. I mean, I don't know if it will necessarily translate to baseline bonus, but it'll be a lot more passing. So you would think so. But maybe they're sort of a bit vulnerable in defence. And I mean, I think if I absolutely had to choose a keeper right now for the rest of the season, it would probably be Kelleher.
Yeah, I know, that's understandable.
But then the problem with that is, it becomes even more ugly, that move in 24, because if you wanted to go to Kelleher, you're going into Villa away, Newcastle away, Arsenal at home. So it's just ugly. So it's actually really quite difficult with the keeper. So, but it would be Van Dijk, wouldn't it, to Gabriel and then choose a keeper.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So it's that's tricky. I think your decision is probably going to be halfway there when you see what happens to Gordon's situation tonight, aren't you? That should lead you a little bit, hopefully. But Cunha, just as an isolated issue, because a lot of people were looking at that spot this week, that's one where you're happy to deal with it next week, are you? I suppose you got a little bit of a better bench than me with Tarkowski there, and maybe you can use him.
If I roll this week, I'm not selling either of them next week either.
Okay. Oh yeah,
It just doesn't really make sense to do it next week for me. So, but Cunha feels terrible. But as I said before, he is a god. He has scored 15 Premier League goals for Wolves, and I do expect our attack to improve. And I just hope the manager just makes sure he's in the right place on the pitch. He can do magic. So he can do stuff in the next 2 games.
Cool. Okay, well, I'll take your word for that. Yeah, so my situation a little bit different, but some similar things. Just to read it out, actually, Mad Bob Sanchez in goal at the beginning of a relatively good run. So that was one where
dangerous Dan McGrew.
Yeah,
Mad Bob Sanchez.
Red Dwarf reference there for anyone uninitiated. Mad Bob Sanchez in goal, Alderete, Timber, Gabriel, and Anderson in what actually, to be fair, that is quite a nice back four, isn't it? To be fair, Cherky and Foden, Cunha, and Saka. So we'll come to that in a minute. But midfield is where I have the most debate, I suppose. And then Ekitike and Haaland, who's captain at the moment. We haven't really talked about captain, have we? But I can't see me changing on that, especially with Ekitike's minutes being, a bit debatable. And then on the bench, Dubravka, Keane with obviously a red flag, Anderson, who, to be fair, we've got quite fortunate with the 7 points the other week. It was probably the highlight of that week, which will tell you everything about how it's been for the last few weeks. And then Mark Gui, firmly on the bench, being annoying and being a Chelsea player. So yeah, 2 free transfers. I honestly can't remember how much is in the bank, but it's something like 0.7, 0.8, I think. So I can't quite do Cunha to Bruno, by the way, if that's something that you suggest. So yeah, the situation is that I can either roll with this, but as you say, rolling means the following week you've still got Keane on a red flag, you've still got Gui, and then you have a choice of Cunha at Arsenal or Anderson. Anderson, the fixture is irrelevant really anyway, isn't it, if you know what I mean? So it's 4 points either way. Yeah, so really it's 4 points in any given game, isn't it, basically? And it's whether I'm willing to accept that or whether there is a player that I think is worthwhile losing the information and just buying them now. So logically, there's nothing that you can do with this team in my head other than roll or do Cunha to whoever your favourite downgrade is, which is Enzo, Warry, or I guess Rodgers, right? So it's those kind of players. I think, and then the following week is kind of almost like a dead cert roll unless there is a really bad injury or something. The good thing about downgrading Cunha is obviously then loads of people can go to Bruno if there is a problem. Not that you would want to do that next week, but yeah. What are your thoughts then? Is it worth a move? That's the question. Because as you say, 23 is a nothing, probably. And I'm pretty well set up in some ways, but badly set up in another. So the Chelsea double there is simultaneously good and awful.
I'm just looking at City's team tonight. So did Cherky not start on the weekend?
So Cherky,
he was rested, wasn't he? Or did he play?
Yeah, he's benched tonight. He played.
Was he benched on the weekend?
No, he played some of the FA Cup. I think. Yeah, I think he played from the start. Yeah.
If he played from the start, that's fine. Then maybe he's just got a rest tonight. I was just hoping he hadn't been, for your sake, that he hadn't been benched twice.
No, I think it's okay. Definitely, though, one to keep an eye on because obviously the early kickoff for Manchester United, Man City at the weekend.
O'Reilly's defensive midfield tonight.
Yeah.
So so that just based on the assumption that I think Cherky's fine, then it just looks like a roll. I mean, yeah, Jealous looks really nice. Like Alderete a lot, like a lot. Obviously, Ekitike. So it's a nice team this week. This is when you look at another team that it makes you realize how annoying Gordon is. Because I see Gordon as way more of an issue than like even Cherky or someone. I just think it's hard to see any positive in Gordon really, given that he has to score and he has to start and then he has to score in the first 45. It's useless. So yeah, you got two frees. You say
2, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a roll.
It's tricky. I don't know. I can
see. I don't mean to interrupt, but you're probably saying the same thing. I need to think more about I do need to think more because we're early in the week, and if we think about the Wire Boys, think about the Wire Boys, for example, watching this now. Zoff, LR, others that I can't think of what their opinion is right now. They're looking at both of our teams and thinking just sell Cunha, and I think they're buying Rodgers or Enzo. And I'm not quite there at the moment, so it's early in the week.
Yeah, I think the only thing I do know that I is if Cunha was being moved on, it's I don't know. I don't think it's likely to be Rodgers. But as I say, the Enzo thing is problematic because I need to be right about that. It's fine if you're absolutely sure. If he looks incredible when he's playing, he's the main man, blah blah blah. But it's just I don't know whether we'll know that in time for the deadline this weekend, really. So bizarrely enough, it's kind of Roll versus Warry. Do you know what? The other thing, by the way, is that Warry could in theory come in for Anderson. That's the other thing.
Yeah, but there's just no real advantage to that, is it? Just because of Cunha again, because of his fixture next week?
No. Well, what? Yes and no. It just means that. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. He plays. Harry Wilson plays above either player. Either in either fixture probably. Well.
Yeah, I just mean then you won't have Anderson as an option to play over Cunha next week.
Yeah.
If
exactly. Yes, it's probably a bit silly.
Yeah. All right. We didn't make it just under the 2 hours, did we? So everyone will be.
Sorry. Okay.
All right.
Never mind.
It's fine. No, I think it's a roll. Sure.
All right. Well, we'll see. It depends on how excitable I get on a Saturday morning.
Oh yeah, you can be quite sure you won't be settled on that anyway. So
no, I have to say though, I know that a lot of people feel like this probably now, but this season in particular, I really struggle with making single transfers ever. I don't really like making one move anymore. It just feels wrong. So that's the only thing there. Which I mean, it's a little bit more palatable. Sorry,
unless you've got 5 or 4,
just like it's more palatable a bit this week because you kind of feel sort of 80% guaranteed that you can roll the following week, blah blah blah. But that's probably it, really. So yeah, so it's a roll or that. Just out of interest, in this situation with my kind of double Chelsea already locked in, do you feel like there is any case for bringing in Enzo at this point in time? Because it's a very tricky decision when you're blocking out Palmer.
Yeah, but I wouldn't factor that too heavily. I wouldn't let it obstruct what I wanted to do optimally or ideally too much. I just think like your worst case scenario there is that Palmer just turns into like an absolutely incredible buy, and then you either wildcard or replace Enzo with him anyway. And it's like, yeah, you could end up a transfer down, but it's an unlikely scenario, and because I don't know, like it's unlikely enough that I wouldn't let it dictate my moves. I'd try and remove that really and think first just think about Enzo on his own. But again, we keep coming back to it. It's Wednesday, Saturday. So like how good, I know he could just get his, he could just score another goal in the last minute, but on paper, it's objectively not great. Even if he's playing 90 minutes, it's not great. They're playing against a good team after no rest.
Yep.
So it's not great. Heather says in the chat that she points out that Cherky did only get 17 minutes last week. Just thought I'd point that out. I just wanted you to get a bit scared and sort of panic transfer.
Well, I have to kind of like you, by the way. If I saw Cherky was benched on Saturday morning, I'd probably make 2 moves.
Yeah,
which is annoying, but I can see that will happen. So, yeah. For what it's worth, it could be any combination. I think anyway, it's another kind of Enzo Bruno, Warry Bruno, something like that. So, anywho, let's take that off the screen. Something for us to. Oh god, that was the wrong button to press. Cool. Okay. Well, we'll get out of here. I have. I actually late last night started to rewatch the perfect film, which is obviously Jaws, and I've got the second half of that to look forward to. I didn't. I mean, it's a bit of a sin to break it in 2, but I get tired by about 10 p.m. these days. So, so yeah. I hope your game week has as much bite as that film.
I was watching Born Identity last night, which was very nostalgic. I haven't seen that for a long time. What a film.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. Oh, yeah, actually, just film tip for film buffs, because I have been to the cinema a lot lately. I go to all of the kind of award season films just because it's lots of cinemas around here. And film tip of the year, that from my point of view, Sentimental Value. If you can go and see that at some point, it's a Norwegian film. Yeah, just to be all sort of wanky and cultured. Yeah, but it is probably the best film I've seen at the cinema this year. So do go and see that. Very good indeed.
And just on a far less sort of cultured note, like I've started watching that Industry this week.
Yeah, I have to get around to that. Yeah.
It's very entertaining. It's like, it's crazy, and it's just, I don't normally like that sort of thing. The sort of like random sort of British drama almost, but it's very, very good. I think you'll like it. I think you'll.
Yeah, no, I'm going to give that a good. Once I've finished, the current series I'm watching more than anything else is, God, I think it's called Waiting for the Hour. It's not a very big, flashy series at all, but it's just about, it's a kind of guy who teaches in prison, and it's a really lovely little show. So if anyone does have iPlayer, BBC, then do. We're doing a sort of back to front wire here, talking about telly at the end.
I know. I was just thinking that
we haven't even talked about traitors. We'll do that offline, so to speak. Yeah, that's fine. Cool. Okay. Well, anyway, if you tuned in for that last bit, it was completely irrelevant, but please do like and subscribe and enjoy your game weeks, whatever you decide to do. And as I say, we'll be back more routinely from here, because I don't think there are as many crunches for us. So we'll be back for game week 23. And as I said, I'm pretty sure, hopefully, we've got a good guest for 24 as well. So that's good. Anyway, have a good weekend, or week rather, and we'll see you all soon.
Nice one. See you later.